Hi everyone, one of the most popular questions that I get is how I track all of my candle and other product testing. Now I have done videos on my actual testing process, for example, how I test my wicks and burn times and basically what my kind of entire testing process is. But how do I track my testing? What do I do to make sure that I don't lose sight of all the testing I've done on previous products, changes, and then be able to look back and compare on why I made changes, why something worked, why something didn't work, and keep it all in one universal place so that it's a lot easier to reference in the future. Because, and as many of you might be doing right now, when I first started, I did this on spreadsheets, notepads, I did it, in a Google Doc or something like that, and those are all certainly doable. There's nothing wrong with whatever process you want to use, but today I'm going to show you how I have changed my process and transformed it into a system that I can actually rely on. Now, I probably don't have to stress why it's so important to track testing, as most of you know that have been making candles for more than, even just a few weeks by now. You probably realize how important testing is to get that product right, both from a safety perspective, but also from a performance perspective, of course, as well. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I use the system to track my own testing and testing records, and even provide you with 3 different methods for you to choose from, because we all like to do things a little bit differently. We all have different processes. We all like to do things a different way. So I'm going to show you 3 different options and hopefully even give you some indication of the methods that I actually prefer, but also some tips on which methods are better for different purposes. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you all for being here. Welcome to the channel. If you are new to this channel, my name is Wade. I'm the owner of Black Tie Barn. Here on this channel, we talk about candle making, running a candle business, tips and tricks. We do a lot of reviews as well. If you're interested in any of that type of content, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. We also do random giveaways on this channel for different benchmarks and hitting certain subscriber marks. So please subscribe. Stay tuned for those in the future. And if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up at the end of the video if you enjoyed it as well. I'm going to be sharing my screen and walking you through the different options for tracking your testing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, guys, so here we are. I'm going to jump into that system here in just a minute, but I wanted to outline a little bit of what we're going to be talking about here. This is going to make more sense once we get into the system that I use, and this is not fancy, nothing pretty here. I just wanted to create a little rough outline so we can refer to this later. So again, this is going to make more sense here in just a minute, but the 3 methods we're going to be talking about. Method 1 is we're going to create one product and then track distinct batches. Batches meaning every time we do a new test, like we change the product up, the wick or fragrance load, something like that. Method 2 will be different products for every new tester. Method 3 is going to be something called product variations. None of that probably means anything at the moment except for maybe method 2. But how are we going to do all this? Well, we're going to be using a software that I've talked about on this channel before called Crafty Base. Now, there are a lot of reasons to use Crafty Base. The reasons that I focus on the most in previous videos is about tracking your recipes and tracking your inventory, both finished goods and your raw materials, helping track your cost of goods. You can track your orders, some expenses. It can help with pricing. There's a lot of things that Crafty Base does, and we're not going to talk about all of that in this video because, like I said, we have other videos on it. I do have a playlist dedicated to Crafty Base. I would encourage you to check that out because a lot of what we're going to talk about in today, I do overview a little bit in those other videos. So it would make more sense if after this video, if you were interested, it would make more sense to go back to those other videos and check them out. I will link them in the description below as well, just to make it easier for you to find those. But I don't want to try and talk about those other benefits in this video because many of you have other ways of handling those other features, those other benefits of using Crafty Base. Now, while Crafty Base is not free, you do get a free trial, and if it is something you think you would have some value in, then you could look at purchasing one of the subscription plans. It is nowhere near as expensive as a lot of the systems that can do all of these type of things. Now, I do understand that starting out, you might not want to spend any extra money, and that's completely understandable. But if this is something you are interested in checking out, again, the link below in the description, you will get a free trial. See if it's something that works for you. If not, I get it. Personally, I've been using Crafty Base for several years because all the features and functionality that you get, it just solves so many things for me in one application, which is why I use it. And again, I spend like 20 bucks a month. So I personally think it's really, really worth it. But again, that's not what this video is about. Today is all about how it can help you with your testing, your product testing, which I absolutely love this. Like I said, everyone has been asking me about how I can use Crafty Base for testing, or even if they've never heard of Crafty Base, what I use for my own testing. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we're going to talk about how this works. I'll try to walk through the steps, but if anything is confusing or you don't understand some of the terminology or what we're doing, those other crafty-based videos will explain all of this in detail, or at least in a detailed overview. Okay, method number one is one product and then several different batches. And so what do I mean by that is if you have a candle that you want to test, and you know the jar that you want to use and the wax you want to use, right? Then we would create a test product. But you might change that product for different tests, like try new wicks or try different fragrance loads. And so that is what we're going to use as a baseline example for all three of these methods. And this first method, we're simply going to go to products. And I'm starting in kind of a clean demo environment here. So there's no products here. Try to make this kind of easy. I did add some materials just so we can build a product real quick. But the first thing we're going to do is click on Add Product. And let's say we want to try to figure out the best wick and fragrance combination for a oak moss and amber, for example, from Candle Science. So the first thing I like to do with my products, all my test products, is I just start off by putting test. All right, and you can put that in parentheses or whatever you want to do. And then next I will put the jar we're using. So let's say we're going to use a 9-ounce straight-sided jar, okay? And then I will put the wax that we're using. In this case, I know I have this sample as a material in here, so we're going to use Pro Blend 600 wax. And then I'm going to put the fragrance oil that we're going to use for this product. So we will say oak moss and amber from Candle Science. Now that's a lot of information for a product name because again, we want to talk about the main items that are in this test product. We're trying to find the right combination for a 9-ounce jar with Pro Blend 600 using oak moss and amber. So that is the name of our test product. Now we don't need to fill out any of this other stuff because this isn't a real product that we're going to sell. So we don't need an image, we don't need a sale price or starting quantity or anything like that. The only thing that I do add is I'll drop down to additional details, and then I have a category called test products, and we'll drop it in that category. Now, I'll go back to this here in a minute, but if we click on the product page, you can actually filter by category. So if you have candles, melts, diffusers, whatever, I like to have a category just for test candles, keep all my test products together. And then you don't have to change anything else. We just hit Save Product. So let's go ahead and go back to the product page just to show you what I was talking about here. So if we expand categories, you'll see we have test candles. That's the only product right now, category right now. And then again, because it's also our only product, it's listed right here. And what's nice about this is if we have a bunch of products, we can filter by category, or we can just say search for test, and all products that start with the word test will show up. But anyways, let's go back into that product. And here we're at a main product page. And again, what's nice is you can forget about most of this information. This is not a normal product. We're using it as a test product. So we're not going to create a recipe here. We're not going to do anything. We just need to create the product. So if we refer back to the outline here, method one is one product and distinct batches for every test. So here's our one product. How do we create those now? So now how do we create those test candles? Well, again, I'm not going to go in these tabs in detail in this video, but the tab we're interested in is called manufacturers. That's how you create a batch or create a product in CraftyBase. So we're going to click on manufacturers. Of course, we don't have any, and we're going to just say add a manufacturer. So let's say I just made my first candle, that 9-ounce oak moss and amber candle. We're going to click on add manufacturer. We made one of those, all right, and we'll click on add material. And here we can actually add the materials that I have inside of CraftyBase, actual materials that I have purchased for use. So we're going to start off with the 9-ounce jar. It's right there. We're going to add the wax, Pro Blend 600. And here's the quantity we use, by the way. One 9-ounce jar, where you're going to use 6 ounces of wax. Now, the biggest benefit to adding all this quantity here is that it's actually deducting from your actual real inventory. So that's CraftyBase is tracking all of that for you. But again, the other videos talk about that. The main reason we're adding them here is just so we know what you used in our product. We also are going to use oak moss and amber fragrance oil. And let's say we're using, I don't know, 10%, keep this simple. We used 0.6 ounces of fragrance oil. And then what wick did we try in this first tester? Let's say we used our Premier 725 right there. All right, and we used one of those. Now we could add other things if we added to. If we added any color or whatever, we could add that as well. but we're going to keep this simple for now. So there's our jar, there's our wax, there's our fragrance oil, and there's the wick. This is our first test product, and we want to create this, and then we will come back to this product and document our results. So let's go ahead and just hit, well, we can also add additional details. If you expand this and scroll down to notes, after you've created the candle, you could come back and say we poured at 150, for example. Maybe we let it cure for a week. Whatever notes you want to enter here is totally fine. Right now, it's just about what we did to make the candle, but we're actually going to come back to this later and add more notes, like we need to wick down or we need to wick up or whatever. Hot throw is not good, whatever. But for now, just whatever you want to add. Hit Save Manufacture. So now Crafty Base has a record that we created that one test candle, right? And if we dig into that by clicking, this is the auto-generated batch code, and we can see the date we made it, how many we made. Ignore the costing over here. I have the expenses listed in here, so just ignore it. If we open up the actual batch code, we can see the details. Here's the materials we used, and let's say we went and tested that candle and we realized it wasn't good. Let's click Edit Details. We could come back to the notes, and like I said, we could add weak hot throw. We need to wick up. Again, this is just an example. And hit Save Manufacture. All right, so if we go back to the product, back to the manufacturer's page, if we want to now see those details, we'd have to go back into the batch code, okay? But let's say we know that this is a fail. Well, what I like to do is click on Edit Details, and next to the batch code, I would put fail and hit Save. So if we go back to it again, now when we go on that page, we can see right off the bat that that is a fail. Because if we had 5 other tests here, we want to quickly be able to see from this screen which ones were fails and which ones were passes. So for example, if we make another quick one here, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to put the same wick in because I don't know if I have any other ones. 1, 6.6, and 1. And then we'll hit Save. Okay, so now we've got 2 testers because we've changed it and we realized we need to correct our tester and we made a new one. And let's say this time it works great. Okay, so we can go in here and we can make additional notes if we want to, good hot throw, whatever. Or we can come in here, click Edit Details, and this time we're going to change in front of the batch ID, we're going to put pass. Back to manufacturers. We, again, now can quickly see which of our tests was a pass. Then we know which of these test candles was good. We will create an actual real product based off of that recipe, based off of that combination of wick and oil and jar and everything. And then we can actually just archive this, get rid of this product so we don't have to see it anymore, just hide it, because now we have a real finished product based off of these results. So that is how this product, this is how method 1 works. We created one single product, and then we create a new batch or a new manufacturer for every time we're going to create a new test candle. We change the wick, we change the fragrance load, or whatever. That is method number 1. Now let's talk about the pros and cons to method number 1. The pros is it's very fast and simple approach. We only create one product, one main product, right? And then we just tweak certain elements like the wick or the fragrance load for each batch. So it's very simple. Another pro is that we can search for all of those pass or fails from the manufacturer screen. So let's go back into Crafty Base, and let's say that I have no idea, like if we have a ton of products here and we've made a ton of testers over 6 months, and now we're ready to start purchasing some more materials and start creating some new products, but we don't want to have to go dig through every single one, right? So like we just want a quick idea of all the products that passed our test. Well, you can just click on manufacturers up here and click pass and hit search, and it's only going to find all of our testers that passed. And then we can just say, all right, well, I've already made this product, so I don't need to. Or, nope, this one I still need to create an actual product for. This one I'm going to use going forward. It's just a very easy way to find all the products that pass the test. The con of method number 1 is that you really got to dig for the details. On that main screen, you don't see all that information. So if we go back into this product and go to manufacturers, here's a list of all of our tests, but you don't know what was different about these tests. Other than you change one from pass to fail and vice versa, you actually have to go into the product to find those details. And if you just want to quickly see, like let's say you mostly have a bunch of fails here. So you don't have, actually let me just do that. We're going to change that pass to a fail. All we see is a bunch of fails. Only 2, but otherwise we'd see a bunch of fails here. However, there's nothing here that tells us why they failed. Like what did we use? And so if we want to know what we need to change, you'd have to go into each fail and then see what exactly was used. What WIC was used? What notes did we add? And so that can be a little cumbersome. So again, the benefit is it's fast and simple and we can look for all the pass and fails, but the con is that we have to dig for more details. So now that leads us to method number 2. Method number 2 is distinct products. So if we go back to CraftyBase, so I did a real quick cleanup there to remove that previous product, but for this example, for method 2, we're going to create different products instead of one product with different manufacturers. So in this method, we're going to create a product, basically what we just did, except for what one difference here is in the description or in the name of the product, we would actually put more information. So oak moss and amber, 10%. Fragrance load, and wick we used Premier 725. So it's the exact same thing we did before. We just added that information that was missing into the name of the product. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add it to the test product category, and we're going to hit save product. Now we simply go into recipe if we want, and we create the recipe here. So this isn't one recipe for the entire product. We're not going to make a different recipe for every order or every batch. We're just going to make one recipe and across the board, and I will show you here. So we've got our one recipe here. We're going to hit save. Now this recipe all by itself, oops, so if we go back into that product, you can see the recipe right from the main product screen. Every time we make this product, it's just going to use this single recipe. So let's say we made that recipe. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here, add the manufacturer, but it just auto-fills the recipe for us because we're not going to change the recipe every time in this example. We're going to hit save, and then we'll come back just like we did method number 1 and update the notes and how the testing went. So the biggest difference between method 2 and 1 is instead of one product and we're creating a bunch of batches in the manufacturer screen, the difference is in this example, in method 2, we would create a new product if we wanted to change something. So if we wanted to change the fragrance load or what wick we would use, we'd actually just create a whole new product. And we would call it the exact same thing except for what we changed. Then, just like we've done before, if you realize that that was a pass or a fail, you could actually come into edit, except for this time we'll just put it in the SKU. That was a pass. So now if we go back to our product page, you'll see right there in the SKU it says pass, whereas the others would say fail for this specific item, for this specific product. Okay, so hopefully that one makes sense. I didn't want to dive into that one too much. This one's relatively straightforward to understand. We're just going to make a new distinct product for every one of our testers, rather than grouping them all into one product with a bunch of different batches. So what are the pros and cons of this method? Well, the pros is it's very easy to search for your passes and fails. So we could go to products, in this case, from the main product page, and we could say pass or fail and search that, and every product that is pass or fail inside of our category of test candles will show up. And that's a decent benefit. I don't know if it's that important though, because you're already categorizing by your test candles, or you can search for the name. And so it's very easy to see pass and fails without having to search for them. But it is still a benefit. And another pro is that it's just easier to clean up these products, or to whether to keep or archive them. If we found out all of our failures, we could just select them all when we're done and hit archive, and then it hides them from our view. And then we could just keep all the passes at a point. And then once we turn the pass product into a regular normal product that we're going to start making and selling, we could archive it out of there as well. Because they're all distinct products, we're not having to go remove certain batches or anything like that. You just keep the products you want and hide the products you don't. Now, this isn't really a pro. This is just more of a note. This method is best when there are significant changes. So when would I use method 2? Mostly if I needed to, if it was a different jar or a different wax, or different fragrance oil, obviously. So if it's one of those main differences, I would just make it a new product. Otherwise, I don't really use method 2. I think when you're making little changes, I would use method 1 or 3 that we're going to show here in a second. But if you're going to be doing anything, a significant change, then I would use this method, obviously, to create a whole new product. Then use one of the other methods. That's just my personal opinion. So what are some of the cons of method 2? Well, you spend a lot of time creating products or test products because you're making a new one for every time you make a change. Also, your product list becomes very cluttered because you end up with a ton of test products that are actually pretty much for the same overall product. And then the third one is you get a cluttered screen, and so you'd have to search for oak moss and amber, have them all show up. And yes, you could see your passes and fails in the SKU, but you get long titles and descriptions. And the bigger issue is when you start archiving your passes and failures out of the system, then it becomes really hard to compare. So those are kind of a rundown of the pros and cons. But again, my personal opinion, I don't prefer method 2. So that leaves method number 3, which is product variations. So this is the method that might be the most difficult to understand if you haven't seen my other crafty-based videos. And even in those, we really haven't talked about variations much. But I'm going to show you how they work today. And hopefully it makes sense and you can decide whether or not it is something you want to do. We're back at a fresh new product screen, and we're going to create a new product just like we did before. So again, here we're going to start off by mentioning our main core items, which is our vessel, our wax, and our fragrance oil. Then we're going to do the same thing we did before, add it to a test candles category, and hit save product. So at this point, it's no different than method number 1. Here's where the difference comes in. Rather than going to manufacturers and creating on the fly as we go a recipe for that manufacturer and tracking it there, we're going to do this a little different. We're going to go into variations. Now, the real reason you use variations in Crafty Base is you might have one candle that comes with different lid options or different label options or different color options, for example. That's what variations are used for in regular products. For testing, we use a little bit different. Variations basically create unique differences among the same product. So this makes more sense if we do it as we go. So we're going to click on Add Variation. Now, here's what makes variations cool. Is you create these attributes. So the first attribute we're going to say is called the fragrance oil percentage. So this is how much fragrance oil we're going to use. And let's just add some options. We have an 8%, we have a 9%, and we have 10%. We'll hit save. We're going to add another attribute called wick. And let's say we're going to use, we're going to add a wick option of Premier 725. And hit add. And that's fine for now, and hit save. So let's just start with those. This is enough to show you how this is going to work. So we're back in that main test 9-ounce jar, ProBlend 600 Oak Moss and Amber product. However, in this case, our specific test candle we're making is going to be a 10% fragrance load. We're going to choose the wick of Premier 725. Now again, you could have several wicks here. Maybe use a lot of the same wicks for your test candles. Well, you can have them all listed here and it's just a drop down. We're going to ignore the SKU for now. We're going to hit save. Okay, so inside, if we go back to products, here's our test product. We open it up and now we go to variations. And inside variations, we have our specific test item. It is the same candle, however, you can see the variations below it. Fragrance oil load of 10%, and the wick is Premier 725. We need to actually now make this product. Okay, we've described it, we've listed it, so let's go ahead and make it by opening it up. And remember method 1, we created a manufacturer for it. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go to manufacturer, except for this is a manufacturer for that specific variant. Okay, and now we're going to hit manufacturer. You can see it pre-filled the variants of 10% fragrance load and the wick, and we add our materials just like we did before. And we hit save. By creating a manufacturer or saving a manufacturer, you've told the system you've made one. It's not as important for test products. The reason you still want to do it is if you're using Crafty Base to track your inventory of your raw materials, by doing that, you're deducting your inventory. So Crafty Base knows you've used some of your product to make this test candle. Okay, So let's back up and get back to the main product, just to kind of walk you through this again. We click on the product, we go to variations, we see our one variation. We've only made one test candle with this combination. We see that it was a 10% fragrance load with a Premier 725. And now if we open it, we can see that we made a specific manufacturer for that. Let's say that we've tested that candle now and we didn't like it. All right, so we click on edit and we'll put in our notes. And let's say it was bad hot throw and underwicked. Here's what's cool about the variations too. Now in the SKU, we're gonna put fail because that SKU is specific to this variation, not the entire product, this variation, this specific test candle. Hit save. If we go back to that product, click on variations. Now we see there's that variation with a 10% fragrance load and Premier 725, and we called it fail. It's very easy to see that we failed. All right, so let's try again. We want to tweak that. We know we need to make a new product, so we're going to click on add a variation this time. This time, let's say we want to drop to 9% fragrance load and keep the same wick, or change the wick, whatever. And we just hit save. Now on our product variation list, and we've got two test candles using 9-ounce jar with Problend 600 and Oak Moss and Amber. The first one we already see failed. This one, slightly different. The only difference is a little bit lower of a fragrance load. We tested that product. This time we like it. So we're going to go into edit details on that one. And this time we're going to put pass and hit save. If we go back to the variations on that product, now we have two. We see a fail and a pass all in one screen. And on that same screen, we see the differences. Okay, so that is how that method number 3 works. Method number 3 is we create one product and we go into the variations and create separate sub-products, basically unique subsets of the main product, right? What did we change for those test candles? Because all of these are just test candles. Let's go back to our little outline here. What are the pros and cons of method number 3? Pro is that there's only one primary product. So all of the test candles for a specific type of product are kept together. All the all of the candles using Problend 600 and Oak Moss in that jar are all kept together. So every time we change a wick or we change our pour temp or we change the fragrance load, that's still all kept in the same main test product. We just see the differences between those testers. It's also a logical system. What I mean by that is all of the variations are really just different tests. Variation equals a test. And so it just makes sense. The third pro is that you save a lot of time with this method if you use a lot of the same materials. So if you remember back when I was talking about creating the variations, so let's say we're going to add a third one. Well, we've just got drop-down lists. So if we constantly are going to use 8, 9, or 10%, we just select one. And then if we have all of our wicks listed here that we use frequently, you just select one. You don't have to do anything else fancy and different every single time because they're already created for you. Now, yes, you do have, if you're going to track the manufacturers, you would have to create that every time. But those attributes and variations stay together within that product, so you don't have to recreate those every single time. Now, if you make a whole new product, like a new fragrance oil and a whole new wax and a whole new jar, then yes, those variations won't be there. They're specific to that main product, but you can copy them. You literally have an option that says copy the attributes from, and then you can select another product. It will move them all for you. So it's very, very simple. The other pro is, this is the most important one for me personally, is that you can visibly see all the information from one summary page. You can see all your passes, your fails, and your details about what was different about those tests. So once again, looking back at that, we're on that product, 9-ounce jar, Problend 600, Oak Moss and Amber, and on the variations tab, we see all of our test results, pass, fail, and what was different about each one of them. So in one pane of glass, one dashboard, so to speak, we can see a summary of all the information we need to see. So let's say I had 6 of these in here and they were all fails. I could very quickly glance at them and say, all right, well, I've already tried fragrance oil of 8, 9, 10%. I've already tried these wicks. Okay, I know what wick I need to try now. It's very easy to see. You have all the information at your disposal in one screen. I love it. That's the most important benefit for me. But let's talk about a couple of cons. Well, one of the cons, as you probably gathered, was there's a little bit more initial setup time. You do spend a little bit more time creating attributes the first time, creating those variants. And then, of course, every time you make a variant, you got to make a batch or a manufacturer for each of those variants. So there's a little bit more time invested, but for me, it's worth it because you get a lot more information and it's just a better overall system in my opinion. Another con is that it's a little bit harder to search for pass and fails across all of your products rather than just within one product. Let me show you what I mean. If we go back to the products page and I want to just test all the fails or all the passes, nothing shows up. Because when you search a product, it's not going to search for the SKUs or the names of the variants, just the main product. Okay, so we would have to actually go to the product itself. Okay, so let's look at our test candles. We have to open the product, go to variations, and then we can see all the pass and fails. That is a disadvantage, but there's a very easy workaround for that. Once we know we have a pass, all right, so we know we've got a good candle here, and we can always come back to this list and see which ones failed too, but we know we've got a pass, we know we've got a good one. We'll just edit the main product name, right? So if we go back to the main product here, we just edit the main product name, and in the SKU, we can actually put pass now. So now if we go to products and search for pass, we'll see it. Now you might be wondering, well, we're gonna have a bunch of passes. Yeah, that's fine. You can have a bunch of SKUs that have the same SKU in this case. All your passes will show up if you search for pass here. My advice was don't use the SKU of pass or fail for an actual product name. Make sure those are actually unique SKUs. But that is a very simple way just to get around that rule. You could have also just renamed the actual name of the product instead of the SKU and put pass test, for example, in the product name instead of the SKU. And that will also show up in the search results. So you don't have to use the SKU if you don't want to, and you'll still get results if you search for pass because it's in the name of the candle. So there's a lot of workarounds to that last con. Those are the three methods. I probably already indicated and hinted to you the one that I prefer, but if we look back at the top of our list here over our three methods, let me highlight the main things, the main takeaways here. First of all, I don't recommend method 2. The only time I want to create distinct products is if I'm actually creating a different type of product I'm testing, meaning I'm changing the jar, I'm changing the fragrance oil, or if I'm using a different wax. Use distinct products, right, as part of method 1 and 3. But I don't rely on method 2 by itself. I just think there's too many drawbacks. So for me, it boils down to method 1 and 3. And for me, that's just a matter of personal preference. Method 3 takes a little bit longer, but you get a lot more information, a lot more details without having to dig. And I just think it makes more sense as a system, as a process for me. Method 1 is great as well. You just don't get as much information unless you dig in a little bit further, but it is a little simpler and faster to set up than method 3. Those are my opinions. That is how I use the system. I can't tell you enough how much I enjoy using CraftyBase for tracking all of my testing, among several other things. So that pretty much wraps us up, and hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look behind the scenes at how I track my own testing and my products. And again, I do this inside of CraftyBase. You can certainly track your testing and your records in any system you want. You can use a spreadsheet, you can use a notebook. I used pretty much every method around over the years. I just prefer this one because this is an application I can check from anywhere I want. I don't have to have my notepad. I don't have to, you can do that in Google Docs or something too as well. But this is a system where it's easy for me to go and compare and search and find all my results very easily. It's also tracking my materials as I use them, though. So that's a huge benefit for me. If you are tracking your inventory and you're tracking your supplies, then you really should probably be doing that in a system like CraftyBase. Now, as many of you know, I am an affiliate and sponsored by CraftyBase because I've been using them for so long. So if it is something you want to try out, check out the link in the description below. That helps to support the channel a little bit. I really appreciate it. But again, you don't have to use this. I just wanted to share with you what I use and how I use it. I love it. There are so many other benefits and reasons to use CraftyBase. I've got other videos in that playlist, like I mentioned before. Feel free to check them out. I would encourage you to at least watch the overview video, though, even if you don't necessarily know if you want to move forward, just because you can see what else you can do with the system, and it might make this video make a little bit more sense. I appreciate you all for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for taking the time and being patient. I know this is a longer video as we kind of went into the weeds here. If you guys have any questions or comments about this, put it in the description below. Nope, put it in the comment section below. I will leave information in the description below. Check out other videos on the channel, whether it's crafty base or just any other candle making videos on this channel, and I will see you next time.